Hello everyone, my name is Sanket Waghmare. Today I'll be talking about my MTech project, Pandemic Response Optimization, in which we try to devise effective intervention strategies in the event of pandemic. This work is done with guidance of Professor Rajesh Sundaresan. I'll start by giving a brief introduction. Pandemics have occurred throughout history regularly, like SARS in 2003, Ebola in 2014, and influenza in 2009 and 10. Recently, we have seen coronavirus. Such infectious diseases have having pandemic potentials are caused by zoonotic pathogen transmitted to humans due to increased contacts with animals through breeding, hunting, and global trade activity. Moreover, the Global Virome Project predicts three zoonotic episodes of pandemic potential every year. Therefore, this becomes an important task as whenever a new infection starts spreading, very less is known about it. So, non-pharmaceutical interventions are the only way to control the pandemic or spread of infection. Now, these interventions comes with certain financial and social burden. Therefore, it is important to devise these interventions strategically. Pandemic involves in phases such as investigation stage, recognition stage, and herd immunity and academics. And now, the momentum effect suggests that wherever herd immunity is achieved, even though the pandemic enters the endemic stage, it ends up infecting almost all. Therefore, we hypothesize earliest controls are not the best options. By considering timing the control policy, we can optimize the balance between control effectiveness and efficiency. Moreover, momentum effect suggests that timing a control closer to the herd immunity threshold would enable us to gain control over the rising number of infectious cases. Next, we look into a model which models the pandemic, which is SIR model, which we are looking at a shorthand notation of SIR model. S stands for susceptible, infected, and I stands for infected, and R stands for recovered, which is a compartmental model whose dynamical equation is shown. Alpha of T denotes the influential contact, and thus we can control this by imposing certain mobility restrictions. Now we suppose that the contact factor lies within certain range where alpha max times beta is a normal range where no without any control, and beta is the effective contact rate of the disease, and the minimum is alpha min times beta, that is the maximum mobility restriction. Similarly, we can have vaccinations as a control in a certain modified model, SIRV model, where additional vaccinated compartment is added. Vaccination is implemented with a certain delay, which accounts for the time to develop a vaccine. Now that we have a continuous dynamical system x of t with initial conditions, and we want to find an optimal control trajectory u of t, which together with this straight trajectory tries to minimize the cost function, which is of the following form. H of t is a terminal cost, g of t is the incremental cost. Now we'll come up with our own cost function, which will model our requirement with the following components, which are mobility restrictions or lockdown cost, hospitalization cost, and vaccination cost. One such candidate cost function is as shown, where g of t is penalizing for minimizing the mobility, and h of t is penalizing for total number of infections at terminal time, and also if we are vaccinating at the terminal. A slight modified version of the following cost version is where we vaccinate as the infections are still spreading, and thus the vaccinations come up in the running cost. Now, in optimal control theory, we aim to determine the optimal control actions that optimizes the performance of a dynamic system over a specific time period. The objective is to find the control policy that minimizes the certain criterion such that minimizing a cost. We'll look into two such frameworks, HJP equation and Pontagram's minima principle, which states that given any state and the cost for lying in that state, will try to minimize the further cost of further overall cost. Now, HJP principle considers the entire state space, but we are interested in understanding the optimality control trajectory for specific initial conditions. Therefore, the minima principle states that for an optimal control trajectory, the Hamiltonian should be minimized with respect to the control. Now, the minima principle derived from the Pontagram's theorem is such where H represents the Hamiltonian and P are the co-state variable, where Hamiltonian is a function combining the cost function and the dynamics of the system, which quantifies the trade-off between the cost and the system's behavior, and co-state variables captures the impact of small change in the state of the overall cost. And we minimize the Hamiltonian with respect to our control variable. Now we are looking at one of the solutions for the first cost candidate. Here you can see H is in linear terms of alpha, therefore the control form is a bang-bang control with phi of t as a thresholding function. Similarly, in SIRV model, we have alpha of t and v of t as our two controls, which both follow bang-bang type form. Into some results where we can see for 100 days of simulation with the following cost parameters, the control kicks in after a certain delay of 5 or 8 days and then lies for a very brief period, thus minimizing the social and financial burden of the control. Next, we try to vary certain parameters such as cost of hospitalization, CI, and see what are the impacts. Here is an example where we can see the lockdown is cheap and lockdown is expensive in this following example. And in this example, we can observe that lockdown and vaccinations as a combined form of intervention. Now we draw certain conclusions from the above results. The design of control measure depends on the cost of implementing control. Expensive hospitalization favors early and extended lockdowns, reducing the peak and total hospitalization. Also, costly lockdowns suggest shorter interventions at the right time. Next, duration and timing and duration of control measures vary based on lockdown cost and contact factors. Strategic optimization minimizes the pandemic's impact while considering economic and social burdens. Vaccination controls the mitigate the social burden of lockdown and mobility restrictions. However, resource allocation trade-off between the vaccinations and mobility restrictions must be carefully managed. Thank you.